With the latest on the quickly deteriorating ties between the United States and Turkey. First, take a listen. Here's Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan today talking about the Trump administration.
We are together in NATO, and then you seek to stab your strategic partner in the back? Can such a thing be accepted?
Erdogan also describing their tumbling economy as a plot, an attack, and a siege. That's after the Trump administration hit 2 ministers with sanctions and double tariffs on imports of steel and aluminum. The measures are meant to pressure Turkey over the detention of American pastor Andrew Brunson, who's accused of espionage. Well, still with us in the story, Israel's former Deputy Foreign Minister, Danny Ayalon. But first, let's go to Washington and speak to our senior diplomatic correspondent, Nina Larsen. And Nina, we know there have been talks between the U.S. and Turkey. There have been contacts. But today, Erdogan sounding a defiant note.
That's absolutely correct, Kalev. There was a Turkish delegation that held crisis talks in Washington at the State Department just a few days ago, but they only remained for the day. So I think we can assess from that how badly those talks went. It's absolutely critical for the Turkish government to secure the extradition of the cleric Fethullah Gulen. He's based here in the United States in Pennsylvania. In the remote countryside there, and Turkey blames him squarely on that failed coup attempt from 2016. And somehow Andrew Brunson, an American pastor, has got caught up in all of this. There was a tremendous crackdown on anyone that was alleged to have had any ties to the coup and the leaders of the coup. And Andrew Brunson has been accused of this, of being complicit in the coup, even though his lawyers, of course, maintain he had absolutely nothing to do with it. And this has become a real tit-for-tat between the U.S. and Turkey. They want to see a straight-out swap, cleric for cleric. But the U.S. is not backing down on this.
Danny, you have spent in your roles, various roles in Israeli government, a lot of time dealing with Turkey. What do you think Erdogan's options are here? Because he talks tough. We heard those statements being stabbed in the back that his government, his economy is under siege, but his economy really is crumbling inside.
Well, Nurit, I don't think that Erdogan has any good options except pretty much capitulating, just like he did with Putin after the downing of the Russian airplane by Turkish Air Force. Erdogan is no match to Trump, and he doesn't have any leverage on the United States. At the same time, Trump, with very much ease, can bring down the Turkish economy on its knees. All he needs is just tweeting. And we see what's happening to the lira, and we have not seen the end of it. I think that they made a gross miscalculation, not only by apprehending the priest,
Andrew Brunson,
but also defying the United States. And instead of trying to ameliorate the situation, they are exacerbating it. And one more point that the Turkish should have known is, and I'm sure they got these reports from their embassy in Washington, that, we are now coming to the, let's say, almost the finishing line of the November elections. And November elections where Trump's base is also a lot of Anglicans and evangelical Christians. At that time, to arrest and also to defy Trump on the issue of a clergy, an American clergy, in Turkey is not a good thing. The timing is also very bad, and unless he finds a way, Erdogan, to climb down the very high tree he climbed on, I'm afraid that he will see much more difficulties in the economy, which also may resonate into the political arena.
Well, Nina, as Danny just mentioned, evangelical, that's a key word here. How big a role do you think that has to play, and how far the Trump administration has already been willing to go to get this pastor freed, and how far they might go still?
Well, we've already seen, Nurit, that they've imposed sanctions on 2 individuals, 2 Turkish cabinet ministers, the Justice and Interior ministers, accusing them of human rights abuses. I mean, that's how far they have gone at this point. Turkey has retaliated in kind, but of course that's largely symbolic. Their equivalents over here in Washington wouldn't necessarily have any assets in Turkey. This is a very delicate situation. Tensions were absolutely terrible just just over a year ago, and there was a suspension of mutual visa services at the embassies in Ankara and here in Washington. And, American tourists couldn't go to Turkey for vacation even, and American nationals that were living in Turkey couldn't do vice versa. So we could see a repeat of that kind of thing. But having said that, Turkey depends so heavily on the tourism industry, especially at the moment with the lira in such jeopardy, that, I really couldn't say. But I think the war of words, at least, will continue for some time.
Danny, you talked about the bad options faced by President Erdogan, but there is a certain risk for the U.S. here. We have seen a drift of Turkey from the West, from NATO, of which is an important member, towards the Russian sphere. How much of this is going to continue, maybe pushing them more into the arms of Moscow?
Well, Caleb, we have seen that much earlier this year and even last year, before this issue with the Anglican minister. For the first time, a NATO member is purchasing strategic, I would say, weapons from Russia, the S-400.
Yeah.
And of course, all the the barbs that are being exchanged between European leaders and Erdogan, there is kind of a let's say a balance of fear between Turkey and the Europeans, but not with the United States. Especially now, you know that Erdogan is the last stop of refugees from Syria to Europe. But he's bribed by Europe with $3 billion a year. This money today, he cannot forgo. So he doesn't have too much leverage. Now, if he continues to, let's say, shy away from the United States, all he has left is Russia. And this is the last thing he wants, to be in the hands of the Russian bear. Because once Putin, and he understands that Erdogan has no choice but to rely on Russia, then he can really squeeze more and more on Erdogan in many, many other things.
But Danny, this is also working for him. We heard just earlier from a reporter inside Turkey. He says, well, this plays right into Erdogan's, key speeches.
Right.
The America is against us, we're being held under siege. That kind of thing really helps Erdogan at home. And again, we're talking about a president, we'll remind our viewers, who is starting a term with a whole new range of vast powers.
Absolutely, Nurit. And in this case, right, the sentiments are, and we know that he won overwhelmingly because of the rural areas where the Islamists are more prevalent. But how long can this support continue if they will not have much employment or much to eat or anything that, goes with leading normal lives? So he is really on a very, very tightrope. And it's a very, very dangerous game and gamble for Erdogan.
It's interesting because we see that what maybe internationally is bad news for both the U.S. and Turkey at home is working well for Trump with his evangelical supporters and for Erdogan with
right, in the short term, as Danny says.
In the short term. Well, we never know what happens in the long term. It's too risky a bet to say so.